Oh, never mind. I got one person. We're good. Yep. All right, cool. Okay. What's up, everybody? Hope you guys are having a great week. Some pretty exciting things that are happening. First off, sitting in my house because my computer busted from last night tonight. So Christian, you'll definitely be getting a call pretty soon on that. But it came out of nowhere right before I was having a really, really important business deal and business meeting. And today is my dad's 70th birthday. So I'm going to have to cut this probably at 6:45 because I had to make him dinner and try to crank out dinner in 45 minutes on his 70th. So it's going to be a commitment and working hard. So a couple of things I want to talk about. Hopefully everyone's having a great week. First thing that's really cool is, and I haven't put this up, but you'll first people know, Pandanomics got posted for New York Weekly's top 15 best podcasts for 2020. Super excited. I don't know if you guys saw it today. Last night, we made Forbes India for one of the other companies. I'm part of NACL, the nonprofit league. But it's actually really good to know that NY Weekly thinks that my podcast, and I want to thank everyone that's listened to it and tuned in and kind of gave us some advice on how to work, that we, one of the top 15 podcasts for 2020. I mean, I'll tell you guys, when you talk about doing things, I want to tell you about that story, and I want to tell you about something that's going on with me and kind of how life works. But, you know, when I first started doing this, you guys are going to find this probably pretty insane, but I actually didn't want to do this. So in other words, I didn't want to do a podcast. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to motivational speak. I really like my world of consulting. I'm going to tell you a couple reasons why, and this might correlate with you about upstarting and doing things that matter, right? First thing was, my biggest fear was, if I go out there and I start talking and I spread my message, as any human being is going to feel, am I being fake, right? Is this a true, authentic me? How am I going to be able to do things that matter to my audience while still being me? And I think for all you guys who are in business and you're creating your podcasts and esports and game and life and businesses and everything else, is how are you going to be authentic to yourself without swaying one way or the other? So I'm sitting here with my, you know, one of my closest friends and my fiance, and I'm like, they're like, you should totally do a podcast. And I'm like, who the hell wants to listen to me talk? Like, why would they want to listen to me talk? Yes, companies hear me talk. They're like, you have a story. And I go, my story? Your story invokes hope. Now, let me tell you why I tell you this. Because someone even as secure as me, who just made Forbes yesterday, and for the ones that didn't hear, you know, Pandanomics is one of the top 15 podcasts in 2020 nominated by New York Weekly. I never thought that was going to happen, right? And even someone like me with my experience, I had to go through it 4 or 5 times in my head, 4 to 5 weeks of saying, I don't know if I want to do this. Another week of saying, yeah, I'm going to do it. Another week of saying, I'm not going to do it. And then finally sitting out with my friends and really thinking about what my message was going to be. And I've had 2 paths, and you guys hear me talk about this: the unauthentic self and the true self. What's the unauthentic self? Me posting up all the material things that entice people to want to follow me and push promote, and 1 million people follow me, right? Because with what I have and what I can show that I have is what most of these motivational speakers and these guys do that draws in hope, but to me it was a false sense of hope. Or 2, continue to do this path that's taken a lot longer, but my personal relationships with Matt and Lily and Mike and Ashley and Austin, and some of you guys who reach out to me individually, have, to me, has meant more than having a million people try to follow me, right? Because there's quantity and there's quality. So what I bring that up to you is when you're trying to do something, you have to be true to yourself, but you have to adjust yourself to fit your demographic without not being true to yourself, right? What ends up happening is you get stuck in something that you aren't, and there's absolutely no way to return to come back from that. In fact, it makes it almost impossible to do that, right? And because of that, and after a year of doing it and then taking some time off on the podcast and doing number 2 to be nominated, or not nominated, to have been selected, I didn't even know I was going to be selected. So it meant the world to me. And if some kid from El Paso, Texas, who was told that he was stupid his whole entire life, can pull this off, I encourage every single one of you to follow your dreams and know that even someone like me can feel very insecure, cannot feel very sure, can wonder if the message is hitting. So it's a normal process. And hopefully that encourages you guys to share your stories and your growth and your development. Does that make sense for everybody? All right. I'm going to talk about another thing. We're going to talk about life and how life happens. The last 3 weeks of my life has been extremely difficult. And I want to share this with everyone. I want you guys to carefully listen to this. Despite the fact that we made Forbes India yesterday, the fact that we had a great investment coming into one of my companies, despite the fact that the podcast has made NY Weekly, and all the blessings that have been bestowed upon me as a human being, and my opportunity and my gratefulness to be able to give back to you and help you guys grow individually as a group, life happens. What you guys see on my social media is you see a lot of amazing things. But what you don't know are the struggles and the exhaustion. And I think a lot of you guys can hear it, who started with me at the very beginning. My voice has started to change a little bit, right? It's raspier, it's exhausted, it's tired. I feel tired. I think I look tired most of the time at this point. And that's because life happens. But let me tell you what I've gone through the last 3 weeks. And I'm going to tell you how I've been able to overcome this and still act as if and still feel as if life is normal. One of my closest friends committed suicide, and he did it on Tuesday. And the way I found out was one of our other friends called us, and he left behind a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 1-year-old. Guys, I almost quit doing Pandanomics that day. I felt that I felt so responsible that I couldn't help him and save him, even though I can help other people and save them. I feel guilt. I feel sadness. I feel anger. I feel frustration. I feel loss. And over the course of the last 6 days, I've had no chance to mourn. I've had no chance to really think about things. I've had no chance to, outside of writing some social media about this gentleman, I have been very, very torn because I feel very fake that I couldn't save my friend. I didn't know what was going on with him, but what was going on with him led for him to leave this earth because he felt that he can get out of it. During the same time, whatever business I'm doing, even though you see the Forbes, and even though you hear me talk, and even though you guys might call me for advice, and I'm in business meetings, and some of you, whether it was Mike or Christian this week, or some of the people that I talked to, or Lily, just reaching out and we're talking about business questions. What you don't realize is I am dealing with a very traumatic loss. As you all know, one of my aunts that I'm super close to has cancer. So over the course of 4 weeks, she gets cancer. She's super sick. My friend commits suicide. My 100-year-old grandfather falls and hurts himself so bad that the first reaction is to get to Colorado and to be with him and realize that there's absolutely nothing I can do because I haven't seen him in over a year and a half, and then COVID happened. So that guilt makes it worse that any single time he could leave us, that I haven't had a chance to say goodbye or talk to him, and then COVID happens. When it comes to business, you know, some of the businesses are doing great, and some of the businesses are struggling. And every single month, no matter how much I vent and no matter how much you listen to me, at the end of the day, the person who fixes the problem is me, right? Just like as much advice I give you guys, at the end of the day, you have to fix the problem. Whether you're short on rent, whether you're having family issues, whether you're having career issues, whether you're trying to grow, whatever the hell you're trying to do, you have to fix your own problems. There is literally nobody that can save you but yourself. We can direct you, we can guide you and help you. It was a very critical moment for me because as I'm growing my podcast and I'm winning these things, you can't understand how fake I feel and how sad I feel that New York Weekly will think that I'm worth it, but I couldn't save my friend's life. And this guy looks up to me. He's one of my mentees. He didn't reach out in his final hours. And so there's nothing but guilt. And what happens when you do these type of podcasts with people like yourselves, you start making these connections, and these connections start working together where you start feeling responsible, or you start feeling that you should be able to help anybody, and they feel the same way to you. And when that doesn't happen, that brings pain. Between my aunt having cancer and dying, my grandpa hurting himself, my friend killing himself, the businesses paying exorbitant amount of mortgages, you know, we're talking $40,000, $50,000 a month mortgages, guys, that I opened a building during COVID. I opened another restaurant during COVID. And the Gold's Gyms I own are in bankruptcy because corporate did that. All this stuff that's happening, all the numbers that are happening, what do you see on social media? What do you see the rewards are? How do you see me spreading my message? And my point that I'm trying to make across to you is life happens. It happens. It's just that simple. And lately what I've been telling everyone is you have to believe in yourself and your ability to get out of this hole. But for most of you that have this relationship with me, who's now been months at this point, the only person that can get you out of your own hole is you. I can't even sit there and hold your hand and carry you through the valley if you don't hold my hand. And I'll tell you one of the best examples. When I was 20 years old and I had my first heartbreak, and I thought life was over at 20, right? Everyone's been through your first major heartbreak, you know, and I can tell you for the younger people, now that I'm 40, I don't even remember what the person looked like that I was been with my 20s. I have no idea what that person looks like. It's been so long since I've seen this person. And my mother went down there to see me. She gave me this analogy, and I've said this once, twice to you guys. She says, you're in a hole, and mother is throwing a ladder down there for you, and you won't pull yourself out. So the mother jumps in the hole, and mother tries to pull your hand to get up there, but you won't climb. So then mother wraps you around her arms, trying to pull you out of that hole, and she can't pull you out. So eventually, mother and I will die in the hole because she can't leave me. Think about how powerful that simple statement was. No matter who's there, no matter the person that I love the most in this world, my mother, the person who gave me birth, cannot pull me out of a hole until I choose to pull myself out of that hole. Even with her sitting there, she can't do that. That's life. That's how life works. That's how unfair life is. That's how the functionality of life is. And what you have to realize is, even someone like me that is your mentor, dude, I am dealing with the same human emotions and problems as you. The only thing that's been different is I don't allow it, even though you saw me get really emotional a couple seconds ago, hold me down. And it doesn't mean I don't care. It doesn't mean it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that the people aren't of value. What it means is this is how life works. And the quicker that I keep moving forward and the more sympathetic I feel towards people, the easier it becomes, because, as you know from last week, good things happen to good people, right? Hence the Forbes article, hence the NY Weekly. But then how do you fill the void when the world is cloudy, but you feel so empty inside and lost? And I know every single one of you have felt that way at least once in your life. Maybe even lately. Maybe COVID's done it. You know, maybe your life has happened where you haven't been able to follow your dreams, pursue it. And 2020, let's just face it, sucks ass. The worst year it possibly happened. I didn't mention this. The same day my friend committed suicide, my other friend died. I can't even make this stuff up. And if you see my stories, you know I'm telling this. So in 1 month, I've gone through grief of people, you know, 2 people dying, one person critically sick, my grandpa being, you know, sick and hurting, and still trying to do my duties as a human being. How do you get through this? And that's when I go back to my power perspective list. That's when I go back and check my ego. Because ego is not just based on bad things. Egos are based on, David, do you really think you could have saved your friend's life if you didn't know about it? That was my ego. Even though the ego is not necessarily always from a bad place, that ego came from a place of compassion and love, of hurt, of sadness, of pain, so much pain right now. And it was my own ego that will drive me nuts, because then that ego becomes guilt. And then that guilt weighs you so down that you can't breathe. And then what do people do when you can't breathe? Most people will sit in a corner and cry. And I don't mean proverbial, you're sitting in a corner and crying. What I mean is you're sitting in a corner not trying to move because you don't want to face the music. Is everyone going through that at one point? Yeah. And the only person that can save you is yourself. You don't need motivation, you need action. And so the first thing I thought to myself was, how is the best way for me to honor my friend? By working my ass off and donating to his children's college fund. That's what he would want from me. He wouldn't ask me for the money, but man, I promise you, if the world were reversed and I had any children, he would do the same thing for me. It's the same thing with my aunt. If my aunt leaves us, and we're all going to leave each other at one point, how can I fill the void with my uncle, who's my favorite uncle, and take care of him and be part of him? I have to work harder and spend more time so I can achieve these goals and be with the people that I love. That's what takes all this negative energy and sadness and pain that I go through on a day-to-day basis and literally put it into a positive mindset, because what would they really want? And if my ego says that Pandanomics top 15 best podcasts in 2020, you couldn't even save your friend's life. That's my ego. So ego isn't always from a very dark place like I've been teaching you guys. Ego is in everything we do, even from a compassionate, loving side, because I couldn't save him. You understand that? And if I could save him, I would have saved him. I don't think anyone here doubts I would have gotten on a plane and flow down there as quick as I possibly could to be with this person. That's real control and real understanding of yourself. It's not selfish. In fact, all the compassion comes from a place of love, where your ego is going to feel absolutely hurt. And you have to realize that the only way you can honor them is by moving forward and doing the best things. I always tell you guys, on a typical month, I will spend 4 days, which is once a week, beating the living shit out of myself for feeling like I can't do more or help more people or impact more people. But when people send me messages like you guys have, and I say this every week to you, I become very grateful, because it encourages me to want to do more. Now, someone like Mike and Christian just this week that we've talked to, they'll see me on a phone call and I'm a completely different person, right? There's business David and there's regular David, but no idea at any point in time that I am dealing with these circumstances. You want to know how I make this happen? At the end of the day, if I quit, how am I helping and honoring them? I'm not. Right? So dad's sick, sitting there all the time, being with them, something really important. But then they feel the burden and they feel the sadness and they feel the ego and the pain that you're taking time out of your life and you're getting backed up. You have to learn how to balance this stuff as you guys progressively grow and become a human being. That is the hardest thing to do as a human being, is figuring out how to balance, which is why we go back to our friends, family, associates paperwork that I've told you guys to do. This is why the first 4 lessons were the first 4 lessons, because the first 4 lessons are the core roots of what makes me function as a human being. And even though you can't see it, you can feel it, the sadness that's in my heart. No amount of business, no amount of money, no amount of cars, press, even Forbes India, will outweigh that sadness. But how I'm so grateful for it is because I know he would be very proud of me if he saw that stuff. He was one of my listeners for Pandanomics. In fact, when I found out he listened to Pandanomics, I was like, you listen to my shit? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, it wasn't, he didn't even call me and let me know he listened. It was like literally a year into it. And he goes, man, you got some, I like your stuff. And it threw me off because he never said anything to me. So I talk about how you don't know what impact you're making on people. If you feel like you're sitting alone in an island right now, which a lot of you feel that way, some of you have reached out to me and tell me that personally, you're not. I'm just in the island next to you guys. So's Mike, so's Jess, so's Lily, so's Avi. We're all sitting in the same islands. You're not alone, and there's millions of people like that. But like the millions of people in the world, you have the opportunity to get out of it. You have the opportunity to be better. You have the opportunity to make a difference, and you have the opportunity to impact other people. And that's how, even when I tell you about the ego side, how you balance out the ego. It's not just negative, it's also positive. Before I jump on to the next thing I want to talk about, is there any discussions or questions that you want to talk about with that? Okay. Oh, I see Jordan reaching over.
Yeah.
I might have something after.
Yeah, I was going to say, thank you for sharing that, David. I can definitely relate to having to push forward through very difficult circumstances. And so I had 3 people die like within maybe 6 weeks in my life, and going to work every day, and the whole 9 yards. And so so I was in the same boat to where I couldn't, you can't really process that and stuff, and so I just kind of came out one day. I think I just it's like, man, I can't keep this inside of me, kind of like what you're doing right now. You just can't walk around with the stuff on your chest, you have to get it out. So I remember talking to, I think one of the presidents. It was almost like a bad business decision, because it was like, I was helping this guy with his computer, and I was like, let's start talking the story. It was just like this whole thing. I was like, and so yeah, I mean, it is a lot, but yeah, just remembering that we're all doing the best that we can, and so
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and just know that hearing that definitely lets me know that I'm not rowing in my own boat. So I appreciate that.
I appreciate that too. And that's one thing I want to tell you guys. I'm still doing my job, right? I'm still working. For the people that called me or messaged me this week, I'm going through that. For people that hit me up the last 6 weeks, I'm going through that. And not one time that I mentioned to you that I was going through that, because my job is still my job. My focus is still my focus. The podcast still must continue. Pandanomics, the mentee still must learn. You cannot stop, because at that point you're using excuses, and I'm single-handedly proving to you, you can see how difficult this is for me, but I still have to move forward. And it doesn't mean I care any less or love any less or I've honored anybody less. What that means is I'm honoring you by moving forward and being more. I saw Rudy this week, right? Talked to Lily this week. I've talked to Matt, Mike. I mean, like 10 of you I've talked to this week alone out of the 16 that are on right now. And not one time could you have noticed that was coming out of me. That's responsibility. That's you separating your ego, because it's so easy to be ingrained and trapped into these emotions and feel so sad and let that overcome you and overshadow you and weigh you down, like I said. But if I'm any proof of that, you got to keep moving forward, because that's the only way you can honor people and do business the right way. Does that make sense? You know, the other thing is, before I go on that, I know someone else wanted to say something. Mike, did you want to say something and ask a question?
Yeah. You know, first and foremost, thank you for the honesty and transparency with us. And then also the call you did with me was a huge help. I think it's very much on the line of what you're talking about right now, and handling 20 different things that life throws at you on top of your responsibilities, on top of your businesses, your family, friends, everything that's important to you. Do you have anything that you do, maybe routine wise, or something that's part of your, let's just say routine, that kind of levels you out, that just kind of puts you back to a good spot, just in the case of when things do get out of hand?
I mean, outside of reading my power perspective list, after a while, what ends up happening is you read that list and it becomes boring and mundane. And when that happens to you guys, it's because you didn't appreciate the list to begin with, right? How can you, I mean, I don't care what your religion is, but most people read whatever religious book that you've been taught their whole entire lives, and it doesn't get mundane, right? Or the stories are different variation stories, doesn't get mundane, because your appreciation towards whatever you believe in is your appreciation towards that. So you have fundamental belief. That fundamental belief has to be the same thing with you when it comes to your list and your ego and the things that you're grateful for and your friends, family, associates, because you do it on a daily basis, but you should be doing it with your own life, right? And that's what's important. The other thing I do is I really take big, deep breaths. I do a lot more meditation than I used to. I feel so off. I will tell you, if you can sit there calmly for 10 minutes and just do very deep breaths, and I can show it to you guys. Like when I breathe in one, I literally will write the number one as I'm breathing in, and I exhale back out that one as slow as possible. And by the time I get to 10, I'm doing the same thing with the twos, all the way to 10, I am so much more relaxed. I refocus on it. When I feel like my stuff is off, I take that time myself. I'll go to the bathroom, I'll go to my car, I'll say, give me a couple minutes, I'll come back. I'll do that. I'll run 5 minutes late for a meeting, and I'll come back and refocus in on what I have to do. When I say you have to take time for yourself, it doesn't mean you take on a 5-day binge in St. Bart's or 5-day binge in Cancun. It's literally that 5 minute that you take to yourself to refocus and ask yourself, why are you here? What is your purpose? Why are you doing what you're doing, right? And that's what I do, because it's so easy when you get emotional to lose track of your focus. At work, what is your focus? Why are you there? At life, at your significant other, with your friends, even this mentee session, what is the purpose of you being here? You cannot forget the core purpose, because if you get the core purpose, then you don't appreciate it, and therefore people start falling off. So it's a lot of going back, taking deep breaths. And like I said, ego is a funny thing. It's not a negative thing all the time. It can be a very compassionate, loving thing as well. But those deep breaths, they help me so much. Obviously, you know, and for a lot of people who've told us, I mean, obviously I started working out again, you know, and that helps me a lot too. But like I've told you guys, when I'm really off, it's me looking at, you know, my niece and my nephew, you know, on my screen, like this in my background, like I've showed you guys that before, or me calling my niece for 5 or 10 minutes and playing Roblox with her to just get away from this negativity. Or I'm playing video games late at night and I can come back to do what I have to do. I have to take breaks. And the one thing I never stood about studying was like, oh, you got to take a break every 30 minutes. Yeah. But what kind of break are you taking? The break has to be about yourselves to understand what the issue is, and then you can move forward. It's okay to take steps back, because you don't know how much more it's going to accelerate you forward. Most people scoff at the word taking step back, but I can tell you that I've taken enough steps back where it's taken me forward past anybody else. So a lot of reflection is key, and more so now than ever when I'm going through something. Those 10 seconds are so pivotal in my life. It's really a minute, and it really changes my mindset and gets me back where I need to be. So that's how I do it, Mike.
Huge. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions on this topic, guys? No? Okay. Well, let's talk about something else that's a little bit livelier. When you are doing something and you have business, I'm going to give you some examples of what's going on. Managing expectations is the most important thing in business and life. And let me tell you why this is important. If Mike and I are doing a business transaction together, and Mike is telling me that by Friday, this is going to be done. What happens on Friday when I think we're going to talk about something and it doesn't happen? You get upset, you get frustrated, right? When AT&T says they're going to show up Monday from 8 to 5, and you're sitting at your house waiting from 8 to 5 and they don't show up, you're PO'd because they don't let you know. When you go on a date and that person's running 30 minutes late and don't tell you, you get pissed off. When you're meeting a friend, they're running 45 minutes late and you don't know, you're getting pissed off. That's very normal for human beings. But this is a managing expectations thing. And how I did it in business and how I expect you to understand it is based on the following things. When you can't get something done on time, you must manage that person's expectations and allow them to know it. If you're trying to do a sales goal and the sales goal is, hey, I'm going to do $10,000 in sales this month, and you realize in the middle of the month that you're only going to hit $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000, it is up to you to tell the person that is depending on you to manage their expectations and say, hey, this has been a bad month. We're not able to do it. Now think about what I said in the most simplest terms. This could be a loan payment to the bank. Instead of blowing off the bank that's due on the 2nd, you're like trying to figure it out because you feel embarrassed and you feel upset and you're like, I'm supposed to get this money on the 7th, I'm supposed to get the money in on the 8th, and then the client doesn't give you the money, or the commission doesn't come through, or the deal doesn't come through. You should be managing that person's expectations, because if you're the one who agreed on the deadline and the time that you were going to get done, then you should be the person to tell them that's not going to happen. Think about the services you provide. If you tell someone that you're going to get a web service done by Friday and it's Wednesday, you should already be giving the heads up that you're not going to get it, because you don't know what the other people are thinking. This one thing I'm telling you about managing expectations in life and in business is the reason that I've been able to be on Forbes India, because when the article for Forbes India came out, it was 2.5 months ago. And I have to manage the expectations of all my partners and all the celebrities that are with me to let them know, hey, I am dependent on them to let me know when this is going to happen, right? I didn't sit there and just blow them off and say, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Most people want to know. Now think about an instance in your life when something was happening and all you needed to do was to know what was going on, and that person couldn't give you that respect to do it. So then it becomes an ego respect issue, and therefore the problem that was this big has now become this big. And then the ego becomes this big. Think about that. Think about that. That's with life. That's not respect. That's respect from you. You're respecting yourself by managing expectations and timeline in business and what people want to do. That's what matters. And if you can't do that, then you need to take a hard check on yourself, because why do you not care enough to respect the other person? Or why is the person not respecting you enough to let you know? And any single time I have anybody that works with me that misses a deadline, I'll tell you exactly what happens. I have a current person who works for me who got in a physical altercation a couple of weeks back. And I had this person make me 7 different things for marketing that I told this person on a Friday, and I said I needed it on a Monday, because I had other things to do. When Monday rolled around, I usually give myself 1 day of time. Like I'll say it's due Monday, but it's usually due on a Tuesday, right? Because I know that people will miss out on things. And when that had happened, when that person missed out on it, I told the person, I said, what happened? I got in a physical altercation. And my response back was, why didn't you manage my expectations and just message me to let me know that you weren't going to do it? Because now what you've done is you put me behind, because my business is literally a train. You're all out here, so I can't get everyone else to do their job. So I have to go back and tell every single person what's going on. And for this person, they felt that they had a valid excuse because it went to a physical altercation. And that was a good enough excuse. It absolutely was a good enough excuse. But out of respect for me and managing my expectations, you could have given me the heads up and I told this person, I would have had 15 other people do it. Think about what I just said. A simple courtesy call, courtesy text. Even when I'm running late, I'll tell people, hey, I'm running 15 minutes late. Thanks for waiting for me. I'll be right back. And if I'm not 10 minutes late, I'll say, hey, I'm running 10 more late. Please wait for me. Thank you for waiting for me. I'm trying to manage their expectations because everybody wants respect. Whether I hear, or whatever you think about yourself, everybody wants that. Well, guess what happened after that? This person did it again. Now, anybody that knows anything about me knows this. I'm a very nice and kind person, but I'm really easy to separate things from me. It's not that hard. You know, I can be very demanding because you don't get to where I get by not being demanding, right? What happened was when this happened a second time, I'm ready to drop this person. Because you didn't learn the first time that you had to manage my expectations. And I told this to this person, I said, listen, for the rest of your life, you're gonna get deadlines that are due, homework that is due. Homework is deadlines. You know, if you're doing videos and clips for your esports team, that's your homework, right? If you have to turn in contracts, that's your homework. If you do a podcast, that's your homework. Everything that you do that we've been taught is work, is now homework because it's due by a certain time. That's the whole concept of school, right? Stuff you don't want to do that has to be turned in at a certain time, whether you like it or not, with as much information as you can get it out there, no matter what happens in life. Those are your expectations to manage people. When that doesn't happen, that's when you devalue and decredit yourself. So how many times in your life have you sat there and told somebody something and didn't even have the respect to spend a text that's 5 seconds to tell them, I can't manage this right now, or I can't have this here. Can we make it work? You might lose a client or two. You might lose 1 or 2 ridiculous people in your life, but you will earn so much more respect by managing people's expectations before you go from there. I have a client right now that wants to pay me 6 figures to consult on a giant project. We have been battling 4 weeks back and forth. You know why I haven't closed a deal? Not because I don't want to sign it. So I'm trying to manage my clients' expectations because yes, I'll make 6 figures and it will be a massive deal. But if I can't manage that person's expectations, what are they going to call me? A freaking fraud. Managing expectations. And sometimes what we get caught up in is we think we can get it done last minute, grind 24 hours because we pulled it off before, whether it was school or life or studying last minute, we got that A. And we start to realize that every circumstance is different and it's impossible to do that. That's your ego also playing. You should be managing those expectations way ahead of time, a week ahead of time, letting you know that that can't happen. Because if you don't, they'll take it as disrespect and they'll take it as, I don't care who you are. And let me tell you this is the most important thing. The people you're closest to and the people you've done the most business with, you have to manage those expectations even more because now you have that relationship and they might be used to you slacking, but the reality is nobody wants to feel that way. How do you manage expectations in business and life? And if you don't do it in life, you're sure it's only doing it in business because the reality is, if you notice what I keep telling you, it's the same person and everything. It's the same character and thing. It's the same root person, everything. That's how you manage them both. And that's how you make that work, by managing expectations. So whatever you're doing in business, clients running late, IT's not working, computers screwed, same thing. This morning, life happens. I overslept. I didn't go to bed till 5:30 last night. I woke up at 9:55 for a 10 o'clock meeting. This is a giant sponsorship a giant sponsorship. You know, thank God my hair takes me 2 seconds. I slap on a shirt, wear basketball shorts, right? As everyone does, jump on my computer just in time. What happens? My freaking computer stopped working. No rhyme or reason, just stopped working. And I'm freaking out. I'm trying to sign on, and 3 minutes pass, and 4 minutes pass. And all of a sudden I'm like, holy cow, you know, this is a big contract. So I flip over my phone, I message the guy and I said, hey, my computer's not working, give me 2 more minutes. And then I have to run across the other side of the house, grab my laptop, which fortunately I still had here, jumped on, and then manage the person's expectations to the point where now we're still gonna do business. That simple email of managing that person's expectations made that, even though I was 10 minutes late, made that person want to work with me. Does that make sense? Manage expectations. I got one more for you guys. This is one that is particular to some of the people that I've talked to business with. Then we can get into questions. We'll do 10 more minutes of it, and I'll dip out. But let me tell you what it was. Negotiations and first impressions. When you're negotiating your first impressions, do you think it's easier or harder? And I want you guys to write this into the chat. Just easier or harder. And if you can't write because you're driving, that's okay. Don't even worry about it, right? Because I see you, Avi, and I want to make sure you're safe, buddy. I want you to ask a simple question. Is it easier? Oh, shoot. It just slipped my head. What was I saying? Anybody?
Easier or harder?
You're saying in negotiations, is it easier or harder?
Thank you. See, that's also that old age. In negotiations, is it easier or harder to look like a tough person or to act like a nice person? Write your answers below. Right now. If you can, type it in. I want to see what you guys can tell me. And don't give me the what David wants to hear stuff. All right? Okay. As we're getting in the tallies for America's vote on who's going to be next, let me tell you what David's answer is. David's answer is be nice. Let me teach you why. David can be very intimidating with his voice and how I can control a room and I can sit there and talk to you and go from there. When you look at my resume and you look at my LinkedIn and you look at my Instagram and you're about to do business with me and then you find out all the things I've done, I am very aware when I negotiate contracts, I can be very intimidating, especially if I have this face. I'm trying to talk to you like this. I'm telling you that this is what I want and this is how I want to get it done. And this is how I want to control the scenario. And this is how it has to be or I'm not going to do business with you. And I can tell you that I'm going to win this because there's no one else in the world that can do what I'm doing, and I've proven it over and over and over again. Tactic sucks. It's so hard to say no to nice people. It's impossible. And if you do, you're just a dick. And in business, it's the same way. And there's a way to do this. If I'm negotiating a contract and I'm talking business with you, I am the nicest guy in the world, like the way I'm with you guys. And it's so hard when I'm doing that in business because I already know what I have in my back pocket, the things I can do. But when you act equally as tough in negotiations, ego becomes the #1 killer of the business. Attorneys, the one thing I hate doing when I talk to any celebrity is dealing with attorney versus attorney. So you know what I tell my attorneys? You read the paperwork, I'll do the negotiations. You smile, you're happy, you chit chat, you talk, you BS, you get to know the person, you make them diffuse their defenses to penetrate what you want. Think of the Trojan horse scenario. You've all heard that story. It was a celebration of the masses. This is in history. You went in, they celebrated, here comes a Trojan horse, and everyone was at ease, and they attacked. And they won. being nice is the most efficient tool in business because it makes the person twice on if they should or not should be a jerk. And here's the other thing. It also allows you to know if you want to do business with that person. Because as you all pretty much know, I'm really good at reading people, which is why I like having the videos on. And I'm reading you and I'm kind of reading your faces and what's going on and I'm negotiating it. If this person keeps penetrating and keeps being difficult and hard to deal with, I already know I can't do business with that person. Because you're going to act like a dick when I'm acting nice, hard pass. Right? If you're going to take advantage of when I'm being nice, what's going to happen when I'm being mean? And that's why it works for both ways. Being nice is not a sign of weakness. Being nice is the smartest way to win. Being nice and thinking about the answers is a nice way to win. And if you don't know the answer to the question, like someone else messaged me this week when they were asked about business, the simple answer was, go back and think about it. Go, you don't say, I think about it. Go, let me talk to my partner. They don't know if you have a business partner or not, but that's your default saying, well, let me talk to my business partner and I'll get back to you. That gives you time to think. If you answer on the spot, if you sign a contract on the spot, if you don't even read it, you're being tested because they're going to know that you don't care, you don't pay attention to detail. Now they've gotten you. Now they know where your weaknesses are. And because they're being mean and you're being mean, they're going to continue to attack you and go from there. It's impossible. That's why you're nice. Because you're not just reading them, you're diffusing their defenses to enter and win. That's why you do it that way. That's why I do it that way, at least. Or I know what I'm talking about, right? But that's what I would tell you guys to do, is that's what it should work. All right, guys, we got 10 minutes. I went past my 15 minutes of cooking, but that's okay. Any questions that you guys want to ask from the 4 things I talked about today? You know, I know a lot of you guys like the model of business, but I wanted everyone to share the difficulties I'm dealing with as a human being. It's not just you, man. It's also me. But you keep doing it the right way, you'll be fine. Any questions?
Hey, David, it's Grizz.
Grizz, what's up, buddy?
With what you were just saying, how would I use that, you know, in a streaming wise?
Well, Grizz, when you first met me or you first heard about me and you know that I was an investor in FaZe, you probably had an expectation about me, right?
Yes.
And you look at my social media, you probably had another expectation about me. Were you not very pleasantly surprised about how nice of a human being I am?
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
Okay.
Just be you. And you're a cool, nice guy, dude. Why do you think we have you on brand ambassador streams? Because you're cool and nice. If you came off as a jerk, you wouldn't have been on the next stream. I would have called Matt and said, don't bring Grizz on. Just be you. Be nice.
Okay.
We're fundamentally nice people. We're fundamentally good human beings. So we should fundamentally continue to use that no matter what the world tells us.
Okay. I get it. Appreciate it.
No problem. Next.
Hey, David, this is Christian.
Hey, what's going on?
I just want to thank you today for, sharing your struggles with us. I know that can be difficult to do, especially, over video and stuff. And I just hope you get through, man.
I will, man. And I appreciate that. As much as, like I've always told you guys, you think I'm motivating you, you motivate me to keep staying on track and do the right things and think of things that are beyond money and my ego and things like that. It is just part of life. And it doesn't mean that you care less about that person. It just means you want to honor them in a different way. And that's by succeeding and making them proud and going from there. So I really appreciate it. To me. Thank you so much.
David, not really a question, but more like a comment that sort of goes with kind of what you've been talking about. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been considering venturing out into a different type of business, right? So I found myself not really focusing on the goals that I had set for myself, right? So even though I'm doing well at work, I'm killing it on the ATMs and I'm doing well all around, I wasn't finding satisfaction because I was focusing on the greener pastures on the other side, right, of another business venture that I wanted to pursue. And I kind of took a step back and kind of realized that I kind of paid attention to the signs. I'm like, look, what is the plan? What is it that I wrote down as my goals? And my goals was to work hard at my job, get money so I'm able to invest into my business. And in a long-term plan, I would start involving myself in different ventures. So I went back to all the things that we had talked about at the beginning of the Pandanomics sessions, and that kind of grounded me back in reality. And I'm like, you know what? This is my ego talking, that I need something else in order to achieve things. And right when I made that decision to kind of refocus myself again on the things that I had planned, one of my nephews reached out and he's like, hey man, I'm having a tough time. And he's like, I know that you're killing it, man. Congrats. You're doing amazing. You got all these ATMs and I see you, man. You're hustling. You made it. And it's kind of crazy because on his side, he's seeing the world through the lenses that I guess you're saying that people see you. And I'm like, damn, like I am at the goal that I had. And even though I'm still here, I'm still thinking about other things to kind of not be grateful for, So it kind of was kind of crazy, man. It kind of just made me think. And I'm like, damn, like it's all about perspective, People are looking at you and they're inspired by the things that you're doing. Clearly you're doing something right. So just pay attention to the blessing. So I know it's not a question, but it kind of goes hand in hand with what you're talking about. So I appreciate you sharing that with us, man, because it does help.
Thank you for sharing that too. And I'll tell you, the older I get and the more success I have, the less businesses I'm expanding, because you want peace at this point in your life, right? How much is enough? How much is too much, right? How much is it to where you can help people? And I love hearing that, man, because even for me, it's a constant check to make sure it's not my ego and going from there. And I'm glad that your nephew said that's amazing. I love hearing that. Thank you for sharing that.
Hi, David. It's Lily.
Hey, Lily.
So like you talking about like being the nice person, I reached out to you earlier during the week and I told you I felt like that lady was just being a bully, like trying to bully me, like lowering my prices and blah, blah, blah. And, I was just like, no, like I can't, I was just me. Like, I was like, I can't do it. I explained to her, just my cost and everything. And actually she ended up paying more for the cups because of what she wanted. So, I mean, just what you said, like being nice, like I was really like, oh, I wanted to be like, F you, I was so like mad because the way she was like texting and just, I was like, no, like that. So, I mean, like you saying being nice, like it paid off because I was just like, you know what, I kind of ignored her for a while and kind of, just let her keep texting me and sending me pictures and all this and that. And finally, I was just like, you know what, my price is set. Like, I can't do that. If you want this, like, I have to charge more because of my time, because of material. And finally, she was like, oh, okay, then. So, like, I ended up upselling my product. So, I mean, thank you, because I honestly, I was frustrated. I was mad. I was like, what the hell, this lady?
Well, thank you. That I'm glad you shared that with me. That means the world to me. I'm happy that happened. And can I share the scenario with the group real quick?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So scenario was somebody was trying to buy some products from Lily and they're lowballing her almost below her price. So the first question I asked Lily was, well, what is your price? What is your cost? And then the second question I asked is it going to be long-term business, short-term business? And she said, it's probably going to be short-term. I said, then don't negotiate your prices because you have a set price that needs to be there. If it was long-term, like if it's a Walmart, that's why you do lower prices, right? Because it's by volume, it's a volume business. And when she did it by lower, just by being nice, sometimes people can't afford it right now. It doesn't mean a year later they won't do business with you or 2 years later. In your case, it was a week or 2 weeks later. So I'm really, really happy to hear that. But that's just, further evidence on how you can be that. Don't let the world define you. You can define the world. So I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing that as well. That's amazing. Three more minutes. Any more questions? All right.
Well, I guess I'll add something really quick. Yeah, about you speak on ego, so much, and so like, how do you deal with folks that are very near to you with egos?
How near is this person to me? They live with me, or is this person when I see them when I want to?
Let's say no, this person doesn't live with you, but it's it's in your immediate, it's a pretty close ring. It's a pretty close ring type thing.
You control the narrative. You control how much time you spend with this person and not. Look, this is what happens. You get on a phone call, the person starts bitching at you and complaining and starts nagging, and you're like, that's not me, and you get mad and blah, 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 and you hang up the phone, and then what happens? You're pissed off for 30 minutes, and you don't have to deal with the person afterwards.
Right.
Most people, when they're talking to you, they're venting their own frustrations, not necessarily venting towards you or projecting their own frustrations onto you. And you have to really learn, as a business person, but as a human being, you have to learn, when you're calling me, do you want advice? That's why I ask people all the time. Or do you want to vent? Now, it's a higher up like your mother, you don't say things like that.
This is
you get slapped, but you control the narrative, because what is the intention of this person? No matter how negative and how much shade it is, at the end of the day, if they love you, they love you. And just because their perspective is different doesn't mean they don't support you, doesn't mean they don't love you. All it means the perspective is different. But when you're sitting there yelling at them, it doesn't help. Sometimes when that happens, I put it on mute, I'm screaming, and I get back and I'm very calm when I talk to them. Do they know I'm on mute? Do they know that I put it down? What do I lose from to say that? Especially if it's someone that's a higher up in my family. I don't lose shit. Because I ain't gonna change my mom or my dad. I'm not. But what I can do is control my narrative, because once they vent and they hear from there, they might feel a certain amount of guilt. They might come and apologize. And their way of apology is very, very different, right? Than me just saying, I'm sorry, right? Everyone has a different love language. So when that happens, I don't need to sit there and flaunt the win and say, I want you to tell me you're right, that I'm right. That's ego, right? You know when you know you're right, and you know they know when you're right. So what does it matter? Why even bring it up? That's how it is. So then I'm just like, okay, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'll try my best, and I'll go from there. And every single time, it's the same thing. This happens to me all the time, even where I'm at. I told my parents, I said, Mom and Dad, do you realize that no matter what you tell me, your son is instructing people in college as a college dropout? Do you realize that your son is a partner at Deloitte? My parents don't even read the articles because they don't even have the chance to read it. So I have to sit there and explain it to them. And I don't even have the time to do that because I skip lunch most of the time. So then when it's once a week and they're like kind of nagging and they're upset, I said, I'll tell my parents, I was like, Mom, I've lost 20 pounds out of stress. Do you know it's because of this and this? Sometimes the moment isn't right. Sometimes they just want to vent. Sometimes they have to enact control to feel control, because the older our parents get, guys, I'm gonna tell you this, the effing truth, the more stubborn and difficult they're gonna be, because they lose their sense of purpose. That's being a human being, compassionate, and check their ego. Because they no longer are the matriarch of the family. They no longer are the decision makers of the family. I'll tell you what happened right now. So it's real quick. My dad calls over, and I was at my dad's house 2 nights ago trying to help him fix his internet. Internet doesn't work. My dad doesn't know anything about computers or anything else. All of a sudden, he's calling me today on his birthday, and he's upset because Newt can't go over there and fix his TV so he can watch Netflix. Now, and mind you, I spent an hour on that 2 days ago, and I called AT&T to already set up an appointment. And when I told Newt, I was like, just tell him right now that we've already called AT&T, they have to fix it. My dad all of a sudden becomes, excuse my French, the fucking AT&T technical god, and all of a sudden goes, well, it's because you put in the wrong password. Oh, all of a sudden you got to put in the fucking passwords? Now think about how ridiculous this just sounded to you guys. Your son just made Forbes yesterday. You don't think I know how to put in a fucking password for Netflix? But it's his birthday today. So I had to check my ego, right? Because part of me is a little embarrassed that you tell that to me. Part of me is a little upset that you don't see this. Part of me is like, the reason I'm busy all day is I've been planning your birthday party, for buying gifts and cooking dinner and whatever else we have to do right now. If I swung the wrong way, the rest of his life, his 70th birthday would have been, you were a dickhead to me on my birthday. Who's the dick then? Control the narrative. Cool. Sorry you feel that way. We'll fix it tomorrow. I'll go there again and check it out. That's all it is. That's how you control narrative. So I told you guys, things that happen to you happen to me. It just happened an hour ago, and that's life. All right, guys, I gotta get going. I'm like really behind. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you guys. Same time next week. If you need anything, feel free to reach out. You know, please, 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 you know, take a photo. Again, if you guys can, put it online. It would mean the world to me again. Tag me on that, you know, and just know that you're not alone in your island. We're all on an island and we're all alone. But the thing is, you're really not. You're just that person not on your island doesn't mean that you can't look at that person next to you and know that person's there. Be appreciative of that. Check your ego and we'll move forward. All right, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, David.
Have a great week. Bye.
My God.